The elegant hum of the party thrummed through the air, mingling with the clinking of glasses and laughter that filled the opulent penthouse. Emily Carter stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing out at the glittering skyline of New York City, her heart racing beneath the surface of her carefully composed facade. It was supposed to be a night of celebration, but the weight of judgment hung heavy like the humid summer air. Isn't it a bit odd? I mean, dating Jake, of all people, a voice behind her chimed. Emily turned to see a group of her peers, their smiles too tight, their eyes glinting with curiosity. She could almost hear the unspoken words, too old, too desperate, too much. Maybe she thinks he's a rebound, another added, laughter spilling from their lips like wine from a bottle. They thought she couldn't hear, but she could. She was always attuned to the whispers of doubt that clung to her like a second skin. Let's go mingle, Jake's voice broke through the haze of her thoughts, his boyish smile bright and infectious. He approached, his charm radiating warmth, but it felt tainted by the very air of the party. He took her hand, pulling her into the crowd, where laughter echoed and flirtation danced like fireflies. Ready to show off your beautiful girlfriend? Jake teased, his blue eyes sparkling with mischief. But beneath that playful exterior, Emily sensed a flicker of something else. Was it insecurity? Or was it something deeper, perhaps even resentment? Sure, she replied, forcing a smile. But I don't think I'm the one who needs to be shown off. The words left her mouth before she could stop them, a sharp contrast to the lightness she intended. A beat of silence stretched between them. Jake's smile faltered for a moment. What do you mean by that? His tone shifted, a subtle edge creeping in. Nothing, Emily said quickly, but the truth lingered in the air. She felt exposed, a raw wound beneath an elegant dress. Just, this feels different, you know? Us. Jake's expression shifted, his boyish charm replaced by a flicker of annoyance. Different how, he pressed, his voice low, almost challenging. The tension crackled between them, thick and palpable. Like the age difference, maybe? The fact that I dated your dad, Emily's voice trailed off, the weight of her words settling heavily on her shoulders. She felt the familiar sting of inadequacy, the nagging reminder that she was the older woman in a room filled with youthful exuberance. Emily, can we not do this right now? Jake's frustration was evident, a sharp contrast to the laughter and music surrounding them. I thought we were past this. Past what? She shot back, her heart pounding in her chest. The judgments? The stares? You think I don't see how people look at us? He ran a hand through his tousled hair, a gesture that only amplified his boyish appeal but also revealed his agitation. It's just noise. People always talk. You know that. Noise? Is that how you see it? Emily's voice rose, the tension escalating like a storm brewing on the horizon. What if they're right, Jake? What if I really am too old for you? The silence that followed was deafening, the air thick with unspoken words. She could feel the heat of the party around them, the laughter and music fading into a distant hum. She was acutely aware of how they stood apart from the crowd, two figures locked in a battle of wills, vulnerability clashing with bravado. Emily, he said finally, his voice softer, almost pleading. You're not too old. You're amazing, strong, independent. The age thing doesn't matter to me. But it matters to everyone else, she countered, her throat tightening. And it matters to you, too. I see it in your eyes when we walk into a room. Jake stepped closer, his blue eyes searching hers, but the warmth in them felt fleeting, like a candle flickering in a draft. You think I care what they say? I'm with you because I want to be. I'm not looking for validation. The sincerity in his voice momentarily softened her defenses, but the insecurities loomed large. Just then, a group of younger women approached, their giggles piercing the fragile bubble of intimacy they had created. Jake. There you are, one of them chirped, her eyes sparkling with flirtation. We thought you disappeared. Who's this? Emily felt herself retreat, the warmth of Jake's presence slipping away as he turned to the group. "This is Emily," he introduced, but there was a distance in his tone, a subtle shift that sent a chill through her. "Wow, what a cute couple," another girl cooed, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. "Jake, you really do have a thing for older women, don't you?" Laughter erupted around them, and Emily's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. She forced a smile, but inside, her heart sank. The playful banter felt like daggers, each word a reminder of her perceived inadequacies. She excused herself, slipping away from the group, the laughter trailing behind her like a haunting refrain. The city lights shimmered outside as she stepped onto the balcony, seeking solace in the cool night air. As she leaned against the railing, the weight of the world felt heavier than ever. She closed her eyes, trying to silence the doubts that clawed at her mind. Was she truly worthy of love? Or was she just a placeholder in Jake's life, a fleeting adventure before he settled down for someone more age-appropriate? "Emily?" Jake's voice interrupted her thoughts, his silhouette appearing in the doorway. "Are you okay?" She turned to face him, the tension still palpable between them. "I don't know, Jake. I really don't." The flickering lights of the city mirrored the turmoil within her. She felt caught in a web of her own making, the lines of love and insecurity blurring in the dim glow of reality. He stepped closer, his expression earnest. "Let's just enjoy tonight. We can talk about this later." But as the laughter and music swirled around them, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that this night was just the beginning of a much darker journey, one that threatened to unravel the very fabric of their relationship. Chapter 2. The party pulsed with energy, the thumping bass vibrating through Emily's chest as she slipped into the corner of the lavish penthouse. Glittering chandeliers cast a warm glow over the sea of faces, each one a mask of carefree laughter and superficiality. Yet, for Emily, the atmosphere felt suffocating. She could feel the weight of judgment in the air, like invisible chains binding her to a reputation she never wanted. With her drink in hand, she navigated the crowd, her mind racing. Thoughts of Jake raced past her like the colorful lights flickering overhead, his boyish smile, the way he'd looked at her, the sweet nothings they exchanged. But tonight, she felt something new creeping in, gnawing at her chest like a feral animal, jealousy. As she glanced at her phone, notifications flooded in, drawing her away from the chatter of the party. A red circle indicated a new post, and her heart sank as she clicked on the notification. Sarah's name jumped out at her, and there it was, the photo that felt like a slap across her face. Jake, arms wrapped around Sarah, both of them beaming with a joy that twisted the knife deeper into Emily's already aching heart. She could almost hear the laughter that accompanied the snapshot, mocking her from the screen. How could they? The betrayal felt fresh, raw, and sharp. Her mind reeled as she scrolled through the comments, each one like a dagger. "What a cute couple. Love this dynamic duo." Her stomach churned, an unwelcome mixture of anger and heartbreak bubbling to the surface. Forcing herself to breathe, Emily's fingers trembled as she typed a response. But what could she say? She needed to confront Jake, but the image of him with Sarah clouded her thoughts, tugging at her insecurities. Did he even care about her? Or was she just a fleeting chapter in his life, while Sarah was the one he truly wanted? "Hey, Em." A voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. It was Sarah, her blonde pixie hair bouncing as she approached. "Did you see the photo? It's so fun, right?" Emily's heart raced. "Fun," she echoed, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. "Is that what you call it? Fun?" Confusion flickered across Sarah's face, quickly replaced by a defensive edge. "It was just a moment, Emily. You know how it is at parties. Everyone gets carried away." "Carried away?" Emily's voice was rising, the frustration spilling over. "You're wrapped around my ex-boyfriend, Sarah. Do you really expect me to believe it was just a moment?" "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," Sarah blurted, her voice barely above a whisper. "You know I'd never betray you." "Then why do I feel betrayed?" Emily shot back, her heart pounding in her ears. The word stung, but she felt the need to push. You knew I was dating Jake, and yet you just flaunt it? Flaunting? Emily, it was a group thing. Sarah insisted, her voice rising defensively. You're being unreasonable. Emily shook her head, the hurt morphing into a chaotic whirlwind of emotions. Unreasonable? You're just going to act like it's nothing? Just a friendly hug? She took a step back, her hands trembling. You knew how I felt about him. Maybe you should have thought about that before dating a guy who's half your age. Sarah shot back, her words dripping with venom. The room felt like it was closing in on Emily, the laughter and music fading into a dull hum. She had come here to escape her life's pressures, but instead, she was tangled in this web of confusion, anger, and betrayal. The hurt from Sarah cut deeper than she expected. Her best friend, her confidant, had crossed a line she didn't know existed. As she turned away, looking for Jake in the crowd, she spotted him leaning against the bar, laughing with a group of friends. The sight ignited a fire in her chest, a mix of rage and heartbreak. How could he be so carefree while she was drowning in these emotions? Taking a deep breath, Emily marched toward him, the crowd parting as if sensing the storm brewing. Jake, she called, her voice slicing through the ambient noise. He turned, his smile fading as he caught sight of her expression. Hey, Em. What's up? What's up, she echoed incredulously, her heart pounding. What's up is that I just saw a photo of you and Sarah, and I want to know what the hell is going on. His smile faltered, replaced by a look of confusion. What photo? Emily held up her phone, the image glaring back at them both. This one. You know what it looks like. You two look like you're a couple. Jake's eyes widened, and he took a step back, his brow furrowing. It's not what you think, Emily. Then what is it? She pressed, her voice rising with each word. Because from where I'm standing, it looks pretty damn obvious. Seriously? He scoffed, his defensiveness rising. You think I'd date Sarah? She's my dad's ex-girlfriend's best friend. It was just a friendly photo. Friendly? Emily shot back, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Is that what you call it? Because it sure looked like more than that. Jake ran a hand through his tousled hair, frustration etching lines on his forehead. I'm not interested in her, Emily. You know that. Why would I choose someone like her when I have you? Is that supposed to make me feel better? The bitterness in her voice was unmistakable. I just saw you two acting like you're the perfect couple, and then you expect me to believe that it was no big deal? He looked at her, his expression shifting from defensiveness to something softer, more vulnerable. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. I care about you. Caring doesn't change the fact that I feel like a fool, she hissed back, her heart pounding in her chest. And I can't shake this feeling that you're just going to toss me aside like everyone else. The silence hung between them, thick and charged. For a moment, they stood there, two people caught in a storm of confusion and hurt, both afraid to take the next step forward. The party continued around them, but in that moment, the world faded away, leaving only the tension that crackled in the air. I'm not going to hurt you, Emily, he finally said, his voice low and earnest. I care too much for that. But as she looked into his eyes, doubts began to creep in. Could she trust him? Could she trust Sarah? The feelings of betrayal loomed large, overshadowing the flicker of hope he tried to ignite within her. Emily turned away, a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her. She needed space, clarity, and a moment to breathe. I can't do this right now, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the thumping music. As she walked away, she felt the weight of their unresolved conflict hanging heavily in the air. One thing was clear, this was just the beginning of a tangled web. And she was caught right in the middle. Chapter 3. The cafe buzzed around Emily like a swarm of angry bees, the clinking of porcelain and the murmur of voices intensifying the storm brewing within her. The smell of roasted coffee beans hung heavy in the air, but all she could taste was betrayal, bitter and acrid. She sat at a small table, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her cup, her heart racing as she waited for Sarah to arrive. They had been inseparable since childhood, and yet Emily felt a growing chasm between them, as if they were on opposite sides of a vast canyon. When Sarah finally entered, her pixie-cut hair bouncing slightly with each step, Emily forced a smile, but it felt foreign on her lips. She could see the concern etched on Sarah's face, her blue eyes wide and searching. "Emily, I'm so sorry about everything," Sarah began, her voice shaky as she slid into the seat across from her. "I didn't know he was going to." "Save it, Sarah," Emily interrupted, the sharpness of her tone earning a flinch from her friend. "You knew he was my ex-boyfriend. You knew how I felt about him. And yet, you still went behind my back." "I didn't mean to hurt you," Sarah exclaimed, her voice rising slightly, drawing the attention of nearby patrons. "Jake and we were just talking. I never thought it would get out of hand like this." Emily leaned back, crossing her arms defensively. The warmth she usually felt around Sarah was gone, replaced by a frigid sense of betrayal. "Talking? Is that what you call it?" Because it looked like a lot more than that in the photos. The cafe felt suffocating, the air thick with unspoken words. Emily's mind raced, replaying the moment she had stumbled upon those pictures online, her world shattering into a million pieces. Jake's boyish smile, once a source of warmth, now felt like a dagger aimed at her heart. And Sarah, her best friend, was complicit in this betrayal. "I never wanted to choose between you two." Sarah's voice cracked, tears glistening in her eyes. "But I can't help how I feel about him. You know how complicated everything is right now." "Complicated?" Emily scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "This isn't complicated, Sarah. This is a complete violation of trust. I thought you were my rock, the one person I could count on when everything else crumbled around me. I am. I'm still here for you," Sarah insisted, her hands trembling. "But I can't deny that there's something between Jake and me. It just happened. I didn't plan for this." Emily felt her heart drop. "So this is just some spontaneous fling for you? Is that what I am to you? Just a placeholder until you find something more exciting?" Each word was laced with venom, a desperate attempt to mask her own hurt. "No, Em. It's not like that." Sarah's voice was pleading now, and Emily recognized the earnestness in her friend's tone. But it didn't ease the sting. "I care about you. I never wanted to hurt you." "Then why did you?" The question hung in the air, sharp and accusatory. The cafe felt like a stage, and Emily was the unwilling performer in a tragic play, her emotions laid bare for all to see. Jake entered the cafe, his presence instantly shifting the atmosphere. He spotted them almost immediately, and Emily felt a rush of anger mixed with anguish. He had the audacity to approach her, his boyish smile in place, unaware of the turmoil he had caused. "Hey, Emily," he greeted, his voice light. "I didn't think you'd come here." "Of course, I wouldn't miss our weekly rendezvous," she replied, her sarcasm dripping like poison. Jake's smile faltered for just a moment before he regained his composure, casting a glance at Sarah. "Look, I didn't mean for the pictures to get out like that," he said, his tone shifting to one of feigned sincerity. "But you know how social media is. I thought we could just have some fun." "Fun?" Emily echoed, incredulous. "You call it fun to humiliate me in front of half the city? You think it's fun to date your father's ex-girlfriend while keeping it a secret from me?" Jake's expression hardened, and for a moment, the boyish charm melted away, revealing the insecurities lurking beneath. "You're making this a bigger deal than it is." "I'm just trying to live my life." "Your life? Or your father's shadow?" Emily shot back, her voice rising. "You think you can outshine me by using your charm? Newsflash, Jake, I'm not your competition." Sarah, caught in the middle, shifted uncomfortably, her hands fidgeting in her lap. "Can we just calm down, both of you?" she implored. "This isn't helping anyone." But Emily was beyond reason. The anguish coursing through her felt like a wildfire, consuming every ounce of loyalty she had left for either of them. "You've both betrayed me in ways I can't even fully comprehend right now. I don't know if I can ever trust either of you again." The silence that followed was deafening. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, the weight of her words hanging heavy in the air. She felt exposed, vulnerable, and utterly alone. Jake's gaze darkened, and he leaned closer, his voice low. "You're not as untouchable as you think, Emily. One day, I'll prove that I can be better than you. Just wait and see." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Emily reeling in a mix of shock and fury. She looked at Sarah, who was watching Jake retreat with a complicated expression that betrayed her own feelings. "I don't know what to say," Sarah murmured, her voice. Chapter 4. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the sleek glass buildings of Manhattan. Emily Carter sat at her expansive desk, the hum of the city outside barely penetrating the cocoon of her thoughts. The project spread before her, a rebranding campaign for a high-profile fashion label, demanded her full attention. For the first time since the confrontation with Jake and Sarah, she felt a flicker of focus as she thumbed through mood boards, each one a kaleidoscope of colors and textures. But even amidst the vibrant visuals, a dull ache throbbed in her chest, a reminder of the chaos that had unraveled her world. "Emily." Her boss's voice cut through the fog of her thoughts. "Can you come here for a moment?" With a swift inhale, Emily pushed aside the lingering emotions and stood. Each step toward her boss's office felt weighted, as if the air thickened with every footfall. She knocked lightly before entering, forcing a smile as she crossed the threshold. "Hey, I just wanted to go over your ideas," her boss said, gesturing to a spread of designs laid out on the table. "I think you're really onto something here. The colors are bold, fresh. It's exactly what the client needs." "Thanks, I appreciate that." Emily leaned in, her eyes scanning the designs, but her mind drifted back to Jake's words, the way he had dismissed her with a casual cruelty that stung more than she cared to admit. "You're too old for me," he had said, his voice dripping with condescension. Was she? At 30, she felt vibrant, alive, and fiercely capable. Yet Jake's rejection echoed in her mind, a haunting echo of the insecurities she thought she had buried. "Emily?" Her boss's voice broke through her reverie once more. "Are you with me?" "Yeah, sorry. Just thinking about the project," she lied, forcing her focus back to the task at hand. "Good. I need you to take the lead on this. It's your vision, and I trust you to execute it." There was a warmth in her boss's gaze, an assurance that Emily desperately craved but couldn't quite accept. "Of course," she replied, her voice steady. "I won't let you down." As she left the office, the vibrant colors of the designs clashed with the dullness of her thoughts. She returned to her desk, the weight of the project settling around her like a security blanket. The work demanded precision and creativity, a welcome distraction from the emotional turmoil festering beneath the surface. But as she immersed herself in spreadsheets and design revisions, the unresolved feelings nagged at her, refusing to fade into the background. By evening, the office was quiet. Emily rubbed her temples, the faint glow of her computer screen illuminating her worn-out features. She had worked through dinner, fueled by a determination to drown out the chaos of her personal life. Just as she was about to call it a night, a message pinged on her phone. "Sarah." "Sarah, hey, can we talk?" "I know things got heated." Emily's heart sank. The last thing she wanted to do was confront the rift that had formed between them, but she also knew that ignoring it wouldn't make it disappear. She stared at the screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Emily, I'm busy. Can it wait?" Before she could overthink it, she pressed send. Almost immediately, the reply came through. "Sarah, please. I miss you. Miss her? How could Sarah miss her after everything? Emily felt a swirl of anger and hurt. She had opened her heart only to have it trampled by the very people she trusted. The betrayal felt raw, like a fresh wound refusing to heal. Taking a deep breath, she typed back. Emily, fine. Tomorrow. But I'm not ready to talk about Jake. She tossed her phone aside, the tension in her shoulders tightening. She needed to maintain her focus, to keep the emotional storm at bay. But the gnawing sense of betrayal lingered, and she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was spiraling out of control. As night settled over the city, Emily stared out her office window, the twinkling lights below a stark contrast to the heaviness in her heart. She had built a fortress around herself, but the walls felt like they were closing in. The determination she had felt earlier was waning, replaced by a melancholic longing for connection, for understanding. Suddenly, a knock at her office door startled her. She turned to see Jake standing there, his silhouette framed by the hallway light. He looked different, vulnerable, almost uncertain. The boyish smile that usually adorned his face was replaced by a frown, and Emily's heart lurched. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice colder than she intended. "I wanted to talk," he said, stepping inside, the door clicking shut behind him. "About what? The fact that you think I'm too old for you?" Her words dripped with bitterness, her heart racing as she braced for his response. He hesitated, his expression shifting. "No, about us. I didn't mean what I said. I was angry. And that gives you the right to belittle me?" The air thickened with tension as they faced each other. Emily could feel the unresolved feelings bubbling beneath the surface, threatening to spill over. She didn't want to feel this way, she wanted to be strong, to stand her ground. But the ache in her chest told her otherwise. I'm sorry," he said, his voice softer now. "I didn't handle things well. I didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did," she shot back, the hurt spilling into her words. "You don't get to just say sorry and expect everything to go back to normal." Jake's eyes searched hers, desperation flickering within. "I know. I want to fix this." Emily took a step back, her resolve wavering. Could she trust him again? The emotional chaos swirled around her like a storm, and she fought against the urge to collapse into his arms. "Maybe we need some time apart," she murmured, her heart heavy with uncertainty. As she turned her back to him, a part of her wondered if this was the beginning of the end or just another chapter in their tangled story. The weight of the unresolved feelings loomed over her, a reminder that the battle for her heart was far from over. With Jake standing in the room, the tension crackled like electricity, a silent acknowledgement that tomorrow would bring more confrontation, not just with him, but with Sarah as well. And a part of her wondered if she was ready for the fallout that would inevitably follow. Chapter 5. Emily Carter sat at the polished conference table, her mind drifting as the client across from her droned on about quarterly projections. Despite the bright lights, sleek glass walls, and the distant hum of New York City outside, Emily felt the weight of her thoughts pressing down on her. She was desperate to escape the emotional chaos that had become her life. With her auburn hair pulled back into a tight bun, she fidgeted discreetly with her pen, the rhythmic clicking a small distraction from the nagging sense of unease that clung to her. She glanced at her watch, counting the seconds until this meeting would end. But then, amidst the monotonous meeting, she overheard a snippet of conversation from the corner of the room. Two colleagues were gossiping, their voices low but urgent. "Did you hear about the Mitchells? Apparently, there's trouble brewing between Jake and his father." One of them leaned in closer, her eyes wide with intrigue. "I heard they had a huge fight last week. Something about family secrets?" Emily's heart raced. The name Mitchell sent a ripple of anxiety through her. Jake. The very person she had tried to put out of her mind was now at the center of whispered speculation, stirring up feelings she thought she had buried. "Secrets," the other colleague replied, her tone teasing. "With a family like that, I'm sure they have a vault of them." They're practically a soap opera. Emily's thoughts went wild. What could be so serious that it would cause a rift between Jake and his father? As much as she tried to focus on the meeting, her mind wandered to the last time she had seen Jake, the anger in his eyes when he'd told her she was too old for him. Was this fight about her? The anxiety coiled tightly in her chest, a stark contrast to the cool professionalism she tried to maintain. She forced herself to smile and nod politely at her client, but her mind was racing. Should she confront Jake? Did she even want to? Just then, her phone buzzed quietly in her pocket, pulling her from her spiraling thoughts. It was a message from Sarah. "Hey, are you free later? I need to talk to you about Jake." The tension in her stomach twisted further. She had spent years building a friendship with Sarah, a bond that had weathered countless storms. But now, with her friend involved with the very person who had caused Emily so much turmoil, she felt a pang of betrayal. "Emily?" The client's voice broke through her reverie, and she blinked, snapping back to reality. "Are you with us?" "Of course," she replied, forcing an upbeat tone. But her mind was still racing. The mention of Jake's family issues had ignited a flame of curiosity and concern. What if there was more to this story? What if Jake was in real trouble? The meeting finally drew to a close, and Emily barely registered the polite farewells as she gathered her things. She stepped out into the bustling corridor, her thoughts still tangled in the gossip she had overheard. As she walked back to her office, the weight of her decisions pressed down on her. She had been trying to move on, to focus on her career, but the thought of Jake in distress pulled at her heart. Why did she still care? Arriving at her office, she tossed her bag on the chair and pulled out her phone, staring at Sarah's message. The logical part of her screamed to ignore it, to keep the distance she had tried to establish. But the emotional side, the one that still felt the pull of Jake's charm, urged her to respond. "I'll meet you." "Where?" She hit send and paced her office, the anxiety bubbling beneath her skin. What could Sarah possibly have to say that would affect her? Would it be about Jake? Or was it something deeper? When the time came to meet Sarah, Emily's heart raced with apprehension. She arrived at the quaint cafe they often frequented, the warm aroma of coffee clashing with the cold uncertainty that lingered in her mind. As she approached their usual table, she spotted Sarah already seated, her expression a mix of concern and excitement. "Hey." Sarah greeted her, her voice bright yet underlined with tension. "I'm so glad you came." Emily sat down, her stomach churning. "What's going on? Is it about Jake?" Sarah hesitated, her eyes flitting away, as if she were weighing her words carefully. "It's complicated. I've been talking to him, and there's so much more happening in his life than you know." The way Sarah said you felt like an accusation, and Emily felt the heat rise in her cheeks. "What do you mean? Is he okay?" "Honestly, I'm not sure." Sarah leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "Jake's family is falling apart, and he's caught in the middle. His father is involved in something shady, and it's affecting him." "What kind of shady?" Emily interrupted, her heart pounding in her chest. "I don't know all the details, but it's serious, Emily. Jake is struggling with it, and he's been reaching out to me for support." The revelation hit Emily like a punch to the gut. Here she was, grappling with her own feelings about the man who had called her too old, while he was facing a crisis that could change everything. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Emily's voice trembled with a mix of anger and anxiety. "I didn't want to hurt you," Sarah exclaimed, her eyes pleading. "But I care about him, and I know you do too. I thought you'd want to know." Emily's mind raced. She felt the emotional contrast between her desire for independence and the pull of her lingering affection for Jake. "What do we do? Should I reach out?" "Maybe. But be careful, Emily. You know how he can be." As they discussed the tangled web of emotions and secrets surrounding Jake, Emily felt the tension mount. The stakes were higher than she had anticipated, and the fight between loyalty and betrayal loomed large. The shadows of Jake's family began to close in on her, and with each passing moment, she realized that she couldn't turn away. Not now. As she left the cafe, a sense of foreboding settled in her gut. She would have to confront Jake and face whatever demons lay ahead. But one thing was certain, this was far from over. Chapter 6. Emily stood at the edge of Central Park, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows that mirrored her own internal turmoil. The vibrant green trees and the laughter of children playing nearby felt like a cruel contrast to the storm brewing in her heart. She had overheard the whispers, the murmurs of gossip that painted Jake as a young man trapped in the shadow of his father. It was time to confront him, to unravel the web of secrecy that seemed to cling to their every interaction. Taking a deep breath, she made her way to the cozy cafe where they often met. The familiar scent of coffee and pastries enveloped her, but today, it did little to calm her nerves. As she pushed open the door, the bell jingled, announcing her arrival. Jake was seated at their usual table, his dark hair tousled and a boyish smile plastered across his face. For a fleeting moment, she was reminded of the charm that had initially drawn her to him. But that charm felt like a mask now, one she was determined to peel away. "Hey, Em," he greeted, his voice bright, but she could sense an undercurrent of tension. "You're just in time. I was thinking about our next adventure." "Adventure," she echoed, feigning interest as she slid into the chair opposite him. "How about we talk about something more pressing first?" Jake's smile faltered, his eyes narrowing slightly. "What do you mean?" "The rumors, Jake," she said, her tone steady despite the rising tide of anxiety in her chest. "About you and your dad. I heard people talking." He leaned back, crossing his arms defensively. "What rumors?" "The ones that say you're jealous of me because I dated your father. That you feel overshadowed by me," she pressed, each word feeling like a weight lifting from her chest. "What's really going on?" For a moment, silence hung between them, thick and suffocating. Jake's expression shifted, the mask slipping just enough for her to catch a glimpse of the insecurities he usually hid so well. "You think I care what they say," he replied, though his voice lacked conviction, a hint of desperation lurking beneath the surface. "Do you?" Emily shot back, her green eyes piercing into his. "Because this feels like more than just gossip. It feels personal." Jake's facade cracked, revealing the simmering resentment that had been buried deep within. "You don't know what it's like, Emily. You waltz in with your confidence, your wealth, and everyone just adores you. Meanwhile, I'm just Jake. The son of a man who can't seem to see past your shadow." Emily felt a pang of sympathy mixed with frustration. "I didn't ask for this, Jake. I'm just trying to figure things out, like everyone else. But manipulating your way into my life isn't the answer." He leaned forward, his expression intense. "I'm not manipulating anything. I just want to make a mark, to prove myself. But every time I try, it feels like you're in the way. Maybe you need to find your own path instead of trying to outshine me," Emily countered, her voice rising slightly. "This isn't a competition. I want to support you, but you keep pushing me away." Jake's eyes flickered with uncertainty, and she could see the conflict raging within him. "I thought you understood me, Emily. But maybe I'm not the man you thought I was." The revelation struck her like a bolt of lightning. "And maybe you're not the man I want to be with," she whispered, the weight of her words settling heavily between them. A tense silence enveloped them, filled only by the distant sounds of laughter outside. Emily's heart raced as she realized the truth. Their relationship was unraveling, thread by thread. Jake was standing on the precipice of something dark, and she was terrified of being pulled into the abyss. "Emily, wait," he said suddenly, his voice raw with emotion. I need you to see me, to believe in me." "I want to, Jake, but trust is hard when you keep deflecting." "You have to be honest with me," she replied, her voice steady but laced with vulnerability. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration etched across his features. Fine. You want honesty? I'm scared, okay? Scared of living in my father's shadow, scared of being compared to you, and scared of losing you. The admission hung in the air, heavy with both pain and relief. Emily felt a flicker of empathy, but it was overshadowed by her own fears. You need to confront your father, not me. I'm not the enemy here, Jake. Maybe this whole thing was a mistake, he muttered, looking away. The bitterness in his voice cut through her like glass, and she felt the tears prick her eyes. Maybe it was, she replied, her heart aching. The truth was, she had been trying to navigate the complexities of their relationship while grappling with her own insecurities. But I'm not ready to give up just yet. As she stood to leave, Jake reached for her hand, his grip firm but trembling. Don't walk away, Emily. We can figure this out together. But in that moment, she realized that the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. I need time, Jake. Time to think about what this really means for both of us, she said, pulling her hand away. With one last look, filled with a mixture of longing and heartbreak, she stepped out of the cafe, the warmth of the sun contrasting sharply with the chill settling in her heart. The world outside felt vast and overwhelming, and as she walked away, she could feel the weight of their fractured relationship pressing down on her. She needed clarity, and she needed to trust herself above all else. Little did she know, the storm was far from over, and the secrets lurking in the shadows were about to come crashing down, threatening to change everything. Chapter 7. Emily Carter sank into the plush cushions of the cafe booth, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup as she waited for Sarah to arrive. The bustling sounds of New York City seeped through the large windows, but inside, the atmosphere felt charged and heavy. The vibrant chatter around her only amplified her sense of isolation. She replayed the confrontation with Jake in her mind, each word echoing like a taunt. You're too old, Emily. The sting of his accusation settled in her chest, a weight she couldn't shake off. A part of her wanted to laugh it off, but the deeper part felt exposed, raw, and vulnerable. How could he not see how much she had given to this relationship? How could he not understand the sacrifices she made, the walls she had let down? Just then, Sarah burst through the door, her pixie-cut hair bouncing with each step. She spotted Emily and waved, a bright smile on her face that felt dissonant against the backdrop of Emily's turmoil. As Sarah slid into the booth, the warmth in her eyes didn't quite reach the edges of Emily's heart. Sorry I'm late, Sarah chirped, her vintage dress swirling around her as she settled in. You won't believe the traffic. And then there was this street performer doing magic tricks. Yeah, it's fine, Emily replied, forcing a smile as she took a sip of her coffee. The bitterness lingered longer than she expected. I just needed to talk to you about something. Of course. What's up? Sarah's enthusiasm was infectious, yet it felt like a mask. Emily could see the shadows behind her friend's bright facade, and it made her heart sink even further. It's about Jake, Emily started, her voice trembling slightly. She needed to unload, to express the confusion swirling in her mind, but the thought of discussing him felt like navigating a minefield. He confronted me yesterday. He said I'm too old for him. Can you believe that? Emily's green eyes searched Sarah's face for any flicker of sympathy. Instead, she noticed a brief flicker of discomfort cross Sarah's features, quickly masked by a smile. Oh, come on, Em. He's just being a brat. You know how young guys can be. But it's not just that, Emily pressed, her frustration rising. It's like, he's threatened by me. He can't handle that I've dated his dad, that I come from money. I thought we were past this childishness. Emily's internal monologue screamed that she was looking for assurance, something to anchor herself to. Yet, she could feel her own insecurities creeping in. Was it truly childishness? Or was it something deeper, something she had yet to confront? Emily, you're amazing, Sarah said, her voice steady but her eyes darting away, as if avoiding the depth of the conversation. You can't let him get into your head like this. You've worked so hard for everything you have. Yes, but you don't understand. It's not just about work or money. It's about connection. I thought Jake and I had that, but now I'm not sure. Emily could feel her heart racing, the tension rising like steam in a kettle. She needed Sarah to understand, to be her ally, not just a friend caught in the middle. Maybe he's just feeling insecure about dating someone with your background, Sarah suggested lightly, but the way she shrugged felt dismissive. You know how guys can be. Guys? Or Jake? Emily shot back, feeling the sting of betrayal in her tone. How could Sarah defend him so easily? She felt her stomach twist, the familiar pang of disappointment settling in. You don't know what he's like when we're alone. It's like he's constantly comparing himself to me, to my life. And I don't want to be a trophy girlfriend. Then don't be one. Sarah said, her voice sharp, cutting through Emily's spiraling thoughts. The tension in the air thickened as both women fell silent, the bustling cafe fading into the background. Emily could feel her heart thudding in her chest, the quiet moments stretching out into an uncomfortable eternity. She had always admired Sarah's ability to navigate tough conversations, but right now, a rift was forming between them. You're not being fair. You don't know what it's like to feel like you're always competing for someone's affection. Maybe because I've had my own experiences with him. Sarah snapped back, her eyes flashing with something that felt too close to anger. Emily's breath hitched. Chapter 8. The hum of the city was a distant echo as Emily stood by the window of her upscale apartment, the skyline of New York a stunning yet suffocating sight. She could feel the weight of betrayal pressing down on her chest, a sensation that was all too familiar. The sun was setting, casting long shadows that danced across the walls, mimicking the turmoil inside her. Just hours earlier, Sarah had dropped a bombshell that shattered the last remnants of Emily's trust in Jake. He's the one who leaked those photos, Em. I swear. I saw him talking to someone, and he had this smirk on his face, Sarah had said, her eyes wide with urgency. Emily's heart had raced. The images that had circulated on social media, the ones that painted her as a scandalous figure dating a younger man, had felt like daggers aimed at her dignity. Knowing that Jake, the man she had let into her life, had orchestrated it all felt like a betrayal that cut deeper than any social media attack. Emily's thoughts were a whirlwind of anger, confusion, and hurt. How could he do this? She had wanted to believe in the good side of Jake, the charming, boyish man who made her laugh and feel alive. But this? This was a different game. She paced the floor, her heels clicking against the polished wood, an angry rhythm that echoed her thoughts. What did I ever see in him? Was it all just an act? She muttered to herself, clenching her fists. Just then, the front door swung open, and Jake stepped inside, his usual boyish grin plastered across his face. It faded the moment he saw her. He sensed the tension hanging thick in the air, a curtain drawn between them that he had no idea how to pull apart. Hey, Em. You okay? He asked, his tone too light, too casual. Emily turned to face him, her green eyes blazing with fury. You think I'm okay, she snapped, her voice sharp as a knife. You think it's normal to destroy someone's reputation just to get back at your father? Jake's expression shifted, confusion mingling with a hint of defensiveness. What are you talking about? He replied, feigning innocence. But Emily could see through him, it was a mask she had grown weary of. Don't play dumb with me, Jake. I know you leaked those photos. Sarah told me, she spat, her heart racing in her ears. The silence that followed was heavy, pregnant with unspoken truths. Jake's eyes flickered, a mix of surprise and a glimmer of something darker. Sarah, he said slowly, as if tasting the name, why would she tell you that? Because she's my best friend, and she cares about me, Emily shot back, her voice rising. Unlike you, who only cares about yourself. You wanted to make me look bad so you could get your father's attention back, didn't you? Jake took a step closer, his charm fading into something more sinister. You don't know what you're talking about. I didn't leak those photos. They were taken out of context. You were just too blind to see it. Blind? I trusted you. I let you into my life, and you took that trust and stomped on it. Her voice cracked with emotion, the betrayal twisting like a knife in her gut. His facade slipped further. You're acting like a child, Em. You're 30, but you still play the victim. It's pathetic. The words stung, sharper than any blade. Emily felt heat rising in her cheeks, anger igniting her resolve. I'm not the one acting like a child, Jake. I'm not the one throwing tantrums to get attention. Maybe if you weren't so busy flaunting your wealth and your connections, people wouldn't talk. People talk because of you, she yelled back, the tension between them spiraling out of control. You can't stand that I have what you'll never have, real love and happiness. So you try to tear me down. Jake's expression hardened, and for a moment, Emily could see a glimpse of the boy he once was, the boy who had charmed her, made her laugh, and who she had foolishly believed had her back. But now, all that was left was a cold, calculating mask. I'm not the villain here, Emily. You are. You think you can. Chapter 9. The grand ballroom of the Metropolitan Gallery was a swirl of elegance and opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the sea of designer gowns and tailored suits, illuminating the smiles and laughter that echoed off the walls. But for Emily Carter, the atmosphere felt heavy, like a storm cloud looming over the celebratory event. She clutched her glass of champagne, the bubbles fizzing up like her anxiety, each pop a reminder of the tension that lay just beneath the surface of this lavish charity gala. Are you okay? Sarah Thompson, her best friend, asked with genuine concern etched across her pixie-cut features. Sarah's vintage dress, a deep emerald green, shimmered under the lights, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside Emily. I'm fine, Emily replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The truth was, she felt anything but fine. Jake Mitchell was somewhere in the crowd, and the thought of facing him sent a chill down her spine. Their last encounter had shattered the trust she once held for him. She'd seen the truth in his eyes when she uncovered his manipulative games, and now, the idea of standing in the same room with him felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of fire. As if summoned by her thoughts, Jake appeared at the edge of the ballroom, his athletic frame silhouetted against the throng of guests. He wore a tailored suit that accentuated his boyish charm, but Emily could see the darkness lurking behind his charismatic smile. It was a mask she had fallen for once, but now it felt like a weapon, a facade hiding his true intentions. Look who it is, Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible over the chatter. What's he doing here? Probably to play his games, Emily muttered, her grip tightening around her glass. I'm not in the mood for this tonight. Just remember, you're stronger than him. Sarah's words were meant to be reassuring, yet they felt hollow. Emily had built her life on the foundation of resilience, but Jake had a way of chipping away at that strength, exposing her vulnerabilities like raw wounds. The gala was in full swing when the first whispers began to circulate, rumors of Jake's latest schemes, hints of his rivalry with Emily, and the dark undercurrents of family legacies that threatened to unravel. Emily could feel the tension in the air, a palpable energy that prickled at her skin. As the night wore on, Emily's heart raced when she noticed Jake. Chapter 10. The grand ballroom of the charity gala shimmered with an opulence that was both intoxicating and suffocating. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls, casting a soft glow on the impeccably dressed crowd. Yet, beneath the glamour, tension crackled in the air like an impending storm. Emily Carter stood at the edge of the dance floor, her heart racing and her palms clammy against the silk of her gown. She had come here tonight ready to enjoy the evening, but now, her mind buzzed with the revelations of the night. Jake Mitchell was across the room, his tall figure framed by the flickering lights. He laughed with a group of friends, his boyish smile betraying nothing of the chaos that had unfolded just moments ago. Emily's stomach twisted at the sight. She had to confront him. It was time to unveil the truth. As she made her way across the polished floor, the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses faded into the background. The world around her blurred until it was just her and Jake, their shared history and the secrets that threatened to tear them apart. Jake. Her voice cut through the noise, sharp and commanding. He turned, surprise flickering across his features before being replaced by that infuriatingly charming smile. Emily. You look. Cut the pleasantries, she interrupted, her tone icy. We need to talk. His laughter died, replaced by a wary look. Here? Now? Yes, here. Now. She stepped closer, her resolve hardening. You can't hide from this forever. He glanced around, as if gauging the audience. The crowd remained engrossed in their conversations, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing between them. What do you want, Emily? With every word, her heartbeat drummed a reminder of her fear of abandonment, but she pushed it down. I want to know why you're doing this. Why you're trying to tear everything down. Jake's expression shifted, shadows crossing his face. Tear what down? I'm not doing anything. Don't play games with me, Jake. She leaned in, her voice low but fierce. You're trying to manipulate everyone. Chapter 11. The grand ballroom of the Metropolitan Museum echoed with the fading sounds of laughter and clinking glasses, the air thick with the scent of expensive perfumes and fresh roses. Emily Carter stood at the edge of the room, her heart racing as she watched the last guests filter out, their silhouettes framed by the illuminated art pieces that adorned the walls. This gala, once a night of glamour and excitement, had turned into a battleground of emotions. Jake Mitchell leaned against a marble pillar, his demeanor cool and collected, but the tension in his jaw betrayed his facade. So, this is how it ends, he asked, a hint of bitterness lacing his voice. The way he crossed his arms, the slight tilt of his head, painted him as the charming yet wounded son who sought validation but found only rejection. Emily felt the weight of his gaze, a mix of anger and hurt swirling in her chest. You don't get to dictate how I choose to live my life, Jake, she replied, her voice steady but her insides twisted in knots. The urge to retreat, to seek comfort in his familiar embrace, fought against the resolution building within her. She could hear her mother's voice echoing in her mind, warning her about men who played with emotions like toys. You think you're better than me, don't you? Jake countered, stepping closer, his expression shifting from hurt to defiance. You flaunt your wealth and confidence like it makes you untouchable. But you're just as lost as the rest of us. Emily inhaled sharply, her green eyes narrowing. This isn't about being better or worse, Jake. It's about understanding what I want for my life. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past lift slightly as she spoke. I won't be dragged down by your insecurities or your need for validation from your father. I've done that for too long. The room felt charged, the air thick with unresolved tension. Memories of stolen moments with Jake flashed through her mind, laughter shared over coffee, stolen kisses under the moonlight, and the way he made her feel alive. Yet, every sweet memory was tainted by the bitter realization that their connection had become toxic, a web of manipulation and jealousy that suffocated her spirit. Jake's expression hardened, his boyish charm fading into something darker. And what about us, Emily? Was it all just a game to you? You think you can just walk away after everything? His voice rose, echoing in the emptiness of the ballroom. It was never a game to me, she shot back, her own voice rising as she felt the sting of betrayal. Memories of the confrontation with Jake's father flickered in her mind, the accusations, the hurtful words, and the truth she had uncovered. But you and your father have created a cycle of pain that I refuse to be a part of anymore. Jake's eyes narrowed, his vulnerability flickering like a candle caught in the wind. You're just going to throw away everything we had? You think you can find something better out there? Her heart raced, the truth spilling forth like a dam breaking. I deserve to be loved for who I am, not for the status I carry or the wealth I was born into. I want a relationship built on trust, not manipulation. The coldness of her words hung in the air between them, palpable and heavy. She could see the shock dawning on his face, the realization that the game had changed. Emily felt a sense of liberation wash over her, a confirmation that she was taking control of her own narrative. Jake let out a humorless laugh, shaking his head. You think you're so wise, don't you? But you're just running away, hiding behind your wealth and independence. You're scared to admit that I'm not the problem, your past is. The accusation struck a nerve, but Emily refused to let him see her falter. You're right, Jake. I am scared. But I'm more scared of being trapped in a relationship that doesn't serve me. I won't let fear dictate my choices anymore. As she spoke, she felt the shackles of doubt begin to crumble. Her mother's voice faded, replaced by the sound of her own heartbeat, strong and steady, echoing her newfound resolve. She caught a glimpse of Sarah across the room, her best friend's eyes wide with concern, but also with understanding. Emily. Sarah called, stepping forward, her blonde pixie cut glistening under the dim lights. Let's just talk about this. But Emily held up a hand, silencing her friend. No, Sarah. I need to do this. For me. Jake stepped back, his posture collapsing as the facade of confidence slipped away. So this is it? You're just going to walk away? His voice had lost its edge, morphing into something raw and vulnerable that she had never seen before. Emily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her choice settle in her chest. Yes, Jake. I'm choosing me. With that, she turned away, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Each step felt like a declaration of independence, a refusal to be defined by anyone else's expectations. The gala lights dimmed as she exited, leaving behind the echoes of a tumultuous past and stepping into the promise of a new beginning. As the door closed behind her, Emily felt lighter, as if she had shed a layer of skin. She knew there would be challenges ahead, especially with Sarah, but she was ready to face them on her own terms. The world outside sparkled with possibilities, and for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. Chapter 12. The city buzzed with life outside Emily Carter's new apartment, a cozy yet chic space she had finally claimed as her own. The walls, once bare, were now adorned with vibrant artwork, pieces collected from local artists whose stories resonated with her own journey. Each brushstroke was a reminder of the vibrant palette of her past and the hopeful colors of her future. It felt like a sanctuary, a place where she could breathe without the weight of others' expectations pressing down on her. As she stood by the window, sipping her morning coffee, she let the sunlight wash over her, warming her skin. It was a stark contrast to how she had felt in the past weeks, a prisoner of her own insecurities. But today, she felt different. Today, there was a spark, an undeniable energy that whispered of new beginnings. New project, new Emily, she muttered to herself, a smile creeping onto her lips. The idea had sprung to life like a wildflower breaking through the cracks of concrete. She would launch her own art initiative, a platform for overlooked artists to showcase their work and connect with the community. It was time to reclaim her narrative. Emily's phone buzzed on the counter, a sharp reminder of the outside world. Glancing at the screen, she hesitated before answering. It was Sarah. The rift between them had grown like a chasm since that night, the night when betrayal had been laid bare. Emily had shut her out, choosing solitude over the confusion and hurt. But now, in this moment of clarity, she felt a flicker of longing for the friendship they had shared. Hey, she answered, her voice steady but laced with uncertainty. Emily. Sarah's voice was a mix of eagerness and trepidation. I just wanted to see how you're doing. I'm good, Emily replied, a little too quickly. Focusing on my new project. Silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. Emily could almost hear Sarah's internal battle, a mix of regret and hope. I miss you. I really do. Can we meet? I need to explain. Explain what, Sarah? That you were in love with Jake all along? The words slipped out sharper than she intended, a jagged edge cutting through the air. I wasn't in love with him, Sarah protested. I was confused. I never meant to hurt you. Confused? Emily scoffed, anger rising like bile in her throat. You went behind my back. You knew how much he meant to me, and yet you. I was trying to figure out my own feelings. I thought it wouldn't matter, that you wouldn't care because of the age difference. Sarah's voice wavered with emotion, a sharp reminder of the silent battle they both faced. Emily's heart raced, torn between the loyalty she had for her friend and the betrayal that had shaken her to her core. Maybe it's too late for explanations, Sarah. I need to find out who I am, without you or Jake. There was a pause, and Emily could hear Sarah's soft breaths on the other end. I just want a chance to make it right. Please. I don't know if I can trust you again, Emily confessed, her voice cracking. You've seen how easily I can be hurt. I can't go through that again. Then let me show you I'm still the friend you knew. Just meet me. Please. The desperation in Sarah's voice tugged at Emily's heartstrings. She could sense the deep-rooted fear of losing their friendship forever. But the thought of facing the shadows of her past, of Jake and the heartache, filled her with dread. Okay, she finally replied, although the word tasted bittersweet. Let's meet. But I need you to be honest with me this time. I promise, Sarah breathed, relief flooding her tone. I'll see you tomorrow? Tomorrow, Emily echoed, her mind swirling with uncertainty. She hung up, the weight of the conversation lingering in the air like an uneaten meal. With a deep breath, she turned back to her unfinished project scattered across the coffee table, sketches, notes, and a vision board filled with vibrant images of art and community events. This was her path forward, a way to channel the confusion and pain into something beautiful. She felt a flicker of determination igniting within her. But as she picked up a colored pencil, the doorbell rang, pulling her from her thoughts. She hesitated, her gut tightening. Who could it be? She wasn't ready for unexpected visitors, especially from her past. Reluctantly, she opened the door, and her breath hitched. Standing there, with his boyish charm and an air of casual confidence, was Jake Mitchell. His smile was disarming, yet it felt like a bomb ticking away, ready to explode. Emily, he said, his voice smooth yet laced with an edge of something deeper. Can we talk? The tension in the air crackled like static electricity. Emily's heart raced, a mix of anger and longing surging within her. This was the moment she had dreaded, the confrontation she had tried to avoid. What do you want, Jake? She asked, crossing her arms defensively. I want to explain, he replied, his expression earnest, but Emily could see the flicker of manipulation lurking beneath the surface. I think we need to clear the air. Clear the air, she echoed incredulously, her voice trembling with suppressed emotion. You think you can just waltz back into my life after everything? After you made me feel like I was too old for you? I never meant it like that, he insisted, taking a step closer. I was confused too. I didn't know how to handle it. Confused? Emily scoffed again, feeling anger bubbling to the surface. You didn't seem confused when you were flaunting your relationship with Sarah. That was different. I was trying to make sense of it all, he pleaded, his voice rising with frustration. But I realized that what I felt for you was real, Emily. I want another chance. Another chance, she echoed, disbelief coating her words. What makes you think I'd want that? You hurt me, Jake. I need to focus on myself now. He stepped closer, the air thick with tension as he reached out, brushing her arm lightly. I know I messed up. But I can change. Just give me a chance to show you. Emily pulled away, her heart racing and her mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The pain of their past clashed with her newfound resolve. You can't just walk back into my life and expect me to forget everything. Then let's start fresh, he urged, desperation lacing his voice. You're not too old for love, Emily. You deserve it, and I want to be the one to give it to you. The weight of his words hung in the air, a tantalizing promise laced with danger. Emily felt her resolve waver, the flicker of hope battling against the fear of falling back into a cycle of heartache. As she struggled to find her voice, the door creaked open further, and she glanced at her art scattered across the table, a symbol of her growth and newfound independence. Could she really allow him back into her life so easily? With a deep breath, she met his gaze, determination flaring in her green eyes. I need time, Jake. Time to figure things out on my own. I can wait, he replied, a hint of sincerity softening his features. I just hope you'll let me be a part of it. The tension between them was palpable, a delicate balance of hope and hesitation. As he stepped back, leaving her with a lingering sense of longing and unresolved feelings, Emily felt the weight of the world resting on her shoulders. This was her moment, a chance to reclaim her narrative and define her own future. But the question remained, could she truly move forward without looking back? As she closed the door, her heart raced with a mix of empowerment and uncertainty. Tomorrow would bring a confrontation with Sarah, and she needed to be ready. The journey toward self-acceptance was just beginning, and she was determined to navigate it on her own terms.